What's going on, everybody? It is TripleCrown24 back today with what has actually become an unusual type of video for me because it is not a podcast episode. It is not a grading reveal, and it is not a card show recap, kind of my big three staples on the channel these days. Today's just a general talking video and a little show and tell as well because I got some cards, and then I wanted to show off that weren't from a show. They were just random pickups. And as we move into the summer, a summer where I believe that there will be some very good buying opportunities in the hobby, particularly at the National in Atlantic City, which I will be going to. There's some trends in the market right now that I'm starting to notice that are very eye-popping to me. And I'm noticing these not only through the data of seeing what cards are selling for or what the ending price is. We cannot confirm if they were actually paid for via eBay auctions. So it's, I guess, one of the cruel ironies of the word comp is that it's supposed to mean completed sale, but if an item is not paid for, is that sale really completed? I guess it's one of those big philosophical questions. We won't get into that. What I am seeing though is a lot of hate or disdain for non-gem slabs in non-PSA holders. And I'm not talking about people who are ragging on GMA or HGA or any of those companies. I'm talking about some of the bigger players in the game. Your BGS, your SGC, your CSG. And even the hate has kind of spilled into PSA 8s and 9s now on particularly ultra-modern cards, a little bit more on the modern side. And by modern, I'm going to say since the turn of the century, so 2000 and newer, more specifically in that sweet spot of, we'll say, 2010, 11 to now. So within the past 10 years, give or take a year or two. That's really where I'm starting to see this hate for the 8s and 9s. And with that, here comes the show and tell portion of the video. So you guys will remember this one from one of my show recaps a few weeks back, Megatron Blue Rookie Refractor from 2007 Bowman Chrome, number 150, BGS True Gem, all 9.5 subs. There's a little bit of debris in here, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet, if I'm going to attempt to cross it to a different company or ask Beckett to reholder it. I haven't done anything with Beckett since probably 2016 now, so it's been a hot minute. So I don't know if I'm going to start using them again for anything anytime soon, but it's on the table. Let's just say that quite literally, and the options are on the table. And for reference on this, if you were to say that this crossed to a PSA 10, since it is gem mint by the standards of most collectors, since all the subgrades are 9.5, and this grader on this day said it was gem mint, then I got it for probably about half the price of what a PSA 10 would go for, maybe even a third. So next up, here's another pickup here. This one was $25 shipped off of Facebook. 2009 Upper Deck Lebron James 3D NBA Stars. It's got the, this is not the one with Jordan on it. It's got LeBron in the more traditional royal blue Cavs uniform. See if we can get the other one here. It's difficult with these 3D cards. There you go. You got that mustard yellow Cavs jersey, throwback uniform there too that he has on. So 2009 Upper Deck 3D Stars, little insert here. It is in a PSA 6 holder. So let's play a little game. We'll play this game a couple times here. Can you tell me what is wrong with this card, quote unquote, what is wrong with it? Or why I got a PSA 6? Here's the front. Let's take a look at the back. So this is just, from an arm's length away here. I'm looking at it, and from the camera, I guess an arm's length would be more so like out here. We'll bring it up a little closer for you. To me, I still don't know exactly what gave this card a 6, why it has that assigned grade. Looks pretty sharp to me. If I bought this raw, I would expect to maybe have a shot at a 10. Centering's pretty decent on it. Not seeing any issues on the corners or edges, but hey, maybe there's something that I cannot see since it's already encapsulated. So these are about $40 to $50 raw, by the way. I paid $25 shipped. Next up, this was initially going to go in my Tigers autograph collection since I don't have one of him yet, but I'm kind of waiting for some other products to come out, some of my favorite products later in the year. and then waiting for the off season to maybe scoop one up on the cheap at an auction for a card that I really like. I love the design on these. This is an absolutely beautiful set. Not even the autograph versions, just the regular versions that Topps did last year for Bowman Chrome. So this is the Summer Camp Insert Auto. I opened 2 cases of this. I think I pulled one of these in each case, not Torkelson, but it was different players who I pulled. I think I got J.J. Bleday and maybe Rutschman. Maybe it was Kelenic. It was Kelenic or Rutschman, I think. Regardless, this card here, last time I checked, was about was right around 100 to 120 bucks raw. Here you see it's in a PSA 8 holder. Paid $60 plus shipping. So take a look here. Number to 100. Can you tell me why this is an 8? Just from looking at it here. Because I can tell you right now, I can't tell you just looking at it like this. Now, if we bring it closer, this one I can give you a better idea on, because you can see there's a print line there. So a couple little smaller print lines in here. They won't show up on camera. I've already tried once on the previous take of this video. They're there. You'll have to take my word for it. But that's why I would guess that this got an 8. Is that a bit harsh for this card? Well, it's a little off-centered. Maybe I could see it as an 8. If it was me sending this in raw, I'd probably say it's a 9, but could be an 8. Did whoever sent this in get screwed by the grader? Well, I mean, maybe. But I don't think it's unrealistic for this to be an 8 or a 9. I mean, it's off-centered, so I don't think it'd be a 10. And it's got the print lines on it. So the thing is with all these Bowman Chrome cards is that you almost have to expect that there's going to be print lines, because my experience opening the wax or buying the singles or buying up lots that have the singles in them, it is very difficult to find them without some kind of print line on it. Some of them you just take a little microfiber cloth, whoop, wipes right off. Some of them have some of mine had like a roller mark on it that was bothering me. When I opened my case, so just one little wipe going. Seeing that more and more with Chrome cards, so that's just something to keep in mind. This last one is perhaps the most relevant to my discussion today. And I tweeted this one out. I got a pretty good response to it so far. Just check Twitter right now and see if anyone else had commented on it. I love this product, so perhaps I'm a bit biased in talking about it so highly here, but I love this card. It's a 2015 Revolution, the first year of Revolution, which has primarily been a basketball release. They've kind of dabbled with some of the technologies and Unparalleled for football. That product, they didn't make it the past couple of years, so I don't know when we'll see something like this again. I believe that they are making a Wrestling Revolution product, which I'm curious to see what that looks like and how the singles do from that product. Baseball, I think they introduced the Revolution cards a couple years ago in Chronicles, and they really haven't been too prevalent outside of that for baseball. But for basketball, Revolution has been a mainstay product for 7 releases now that the 2021-22 rookie class has finally gotten the Revolution treatment. So first year of this product that is it a tier 1 Panini release? I would say no, it's not up there with Prism or Optic or Select. To some people like myself, we love it and we put it up there for our personal rankings, but otherwise, no. It's not up there with National Treasures or Immaculate in terms of the RPA-oriented products or the autograph relic products. But it's still a beautiful card. It's numbered to 75. The Sunburst, they've kind of switched the numbering on these a little bit over the years. For the most part, a lot of the numbering on the parallels has stayed relatively the same, or at least within the same kind of window. They don't really change too much, not more than 20% one way or the other from what I've seen. But number to 75 here, and it is an PSA 8 holder. So let's play the game one more time. Can you tell me why this is a PSA 8? First glance here, look at the back again. Nothing that probably jumps out right away from an arm's length, which is what I'm typically looking for when I'm buying cards that are slabbed, to make sure that they are I want to get the best bang for my buck and use this number right here. I'm pointing to this number right here to my advantage as a buyer. And it doesn't matter if you're someone who's doing this as a collector, a reseller, some hybrid, whatever your lane is. I think this is relevant to anyone out there. this card cost me $105 at auction. The last two raw sales for this card were $400 and $450. I had seen one PSA 10, which has a population of 2, according to the title at the time that it was sold, for $800. I believe I saw a PSA 9 for $550. This 8 right here, near mint to mint, is what they are calling this, near mint to mint, $105. So about a fourth of raw prices, about a fourth to a fifth of PSA 9 price. I mean, there was only one 9 that sold, so is that the definitive price guide for a PSA 9? No. I mean, it's because there's one sale card. It's something rare like this. If you get too caught up on that one sale, it will force you to miss out. That's just my opinion, but hey, you do what you want, right? The point that I'm making with this is that when you see near mint to mint, most of the time, if you look at some of the bigger sellers on eBay, and myself, I'm not calling myself a big seller on eBay. I've got about 40,000 cards listed for sale, but which is a lot. Some people tell me, that's huge, but I mean, compared to some of the whales out there, it's a drop in the bucket. It seems like someone like Burbank or Probstein or any of those big ones, PC Sports Cards, MC Sports, the usual suspects who have a ton of cards in their store. Sometimes at auction, sometimes at buy it now. With a lot of those sellers, you'll see in the description that raw cards are near mint to mint or better. When you're listing cards on eBay right now, they've changed up the condition section where one of the presets now is near mint or better. So near mint to mint would be an 8. Near mint would be a 7. Personally, my cards that I list up in my store are indicated that they are near mint or better. So that would be an equivalent of a 7. These are raw cards, by the way, unless I note otherwise. And if there is an issue with the card that I feel would make it not near mint, then I will disclose it. Even to be safe sometimes, I will disclose something even if I think it's still mint. It just kind of really depends on what it is. On something like a Wander Franco card where I know that most of the time, this isn't the stereotype, but most of the time those types of cards are going to be bought by those looking to grade or more so buying it from a financial perspective rather than a collector's perspective, just based on some history I've had. That I will take the extra precautions to make sure. And that's not to assume that everyone is in it for X, Y, and Z reason. It's just I'm a little bit more cautious on certain cards than I am with others. But overall, it's not like I am just careless with cards and I'm not going to denote anything that's raw. I want you to get what you paid for, regardless if it's 99 cents or $99. But when you're spending more money, the expectation tends to also go up as well. Enough of that. If anyone has a problem with that, you're more than welcome to discuss it with me. But really with that is that I'm advertising these raw cards as near mint or better. And that is my expectation buying them as well. So if I buy a card, maybe it has a little bit of a surface issue. Maybe it has some print lines. Is it up to the seller to disclose that to me ahead of time? Well, if they say it's near mint to mint or near mint or better, then I kind of have to assume that there is some minor flaws to it. In fact, I'm going to pull up something here. I think this is interesting. So I'm going to go to one of my more recent listings. And this was one that I copied from another seller fully. I'll go ahead and admit that this was copied and then changed around a little bit to have my own wording in it. So here's the description that I use for my cards. Cards are generally near mint condition, NM, or better, which is the equivalent numerical grade of a 7 issued by a reputable third-party grading company. A near mint card appears to be mint at first glance, but upon closer inspection may exhibit some of the following: minor print defects, e.g. roller marks, print lines, dimples, minor scratches, slight edge wear, and slight corner wear. Centering is determined by the buyer using the photo or photos provided. So that is my overall description. And you'll see that what I give there doesn't deviate too much from kind of the generic one that eBay would provide you if you just use theirs, or a lot of what the major sellers out there use when they're describing their raw cards that are for sale, assuming there is no significant defects. So let's pretend again, for example, that I bought this Torkelson raw and had those print lines on it. Is it ethical to disclose those to the buyer, especially if they're paying, let's say, $100 to $120, which this was the raw price of this at the time? I would say ethically, it is probably the right thing to do. Would I do it? Absolutely. Yes, I would. I'll even go as far as to say that, yeah, it is ethically the right thing to do. And even though you might get, if someone doesn't say anything about it at the time being, people remember these types of things. And if you sell them a card that ends up being damaged, they're less likely to come back. Are they guaranteed to come back if they get a pristine card from you? No, of course not. But the chances that they do come back are going to be much higher when they have a positive experience and you meet or exceed expectations rather than when you fall below expectations. What we're seeing right now with the raw card market is that a lot of the raw examples of these cards, whether it's something like this where there is not a specified print run, or this where it is serial numbered, or there is a specified print run, is that the raw sales are currently outselling the graded sales when they are below a 10. There are some scenarios where the 9s are still outselling the graded versions, which is what I would expect it to be. But really, we're starting to see more and more and more of these raw sales reflecting the prices of above PSA 9s, likely suggesting that those buying it think that they can grade it and get a 10, or they want something that has a shot at a 10. And I like to equate it to this example. This isn't a high school science class, but bear with me on this, is that it is the Schrodinger's cat parallel, which that's probably going to inspire a Schrodinger's cat parallel from Panini now, but it is a Schrodinger's cat equivalent of buying cards in their condition raw, where this right here was designated by PSA, by that grader on that day, as an 8. Okay. I buy the same card raw. I cannot confirm or deny right away if it is a 10 or not. And you cannot get a full idea from just a picture. I see it all the time on Twitter and Facebook. What do you guys think this will grade? It is impossible to determine a grade based on a photo on the internet. You cannot do it. You cannot see certain surface issues. You can't see certain defects unless you see it with the naked eye. What has happened, though, is that because it has the opportunity to possibly be a 10, the price kind of goes up, whereas, people are seeing this as an 8 or this as an 8, and they think, oh, it's got no shot at a 10. I want no part in it because I want gem mint cards. And you might say, well, not everybody wants gem mint cards. Yep, that is fair. Not everybody does. But what I'm seeing more and more of, and this is on Whatnot, this is on discussion boards, this is on Twitter, this is on Instagram, and it's been building up for several weeks now, is I'm seeing a lot of people when people are asking, what are you buying right now? Or what are you interested in buying? What types of cards are you looking for? Whenever they name their team or player, the two things that often follow is that they want no base, so they want parallels. More specifically, they want numbered parallels. Or I should say, they want PSA 10s, not 10s in general. So SGC 10s, no. BGS 10s or BGS 95s, no. CSG 10s, no. Whatever grading company else you want to use, no. PSA 10. No PSA 9, no PSA 8, PSA 10. So they want slabs of numbered cards in PSA 10 form, which the populations are naturally going to be lower on them. It makes sense given the hate for base that is out there now. A lot of people have got burned buying up, base cards or grading every base Prism rookie that they can get their hands on. A lot of which now you'd be lucky to recoup the cost of grading, much less the cost of the card selling it. And with the sheer supply of them out there, to have someone quote unquote, choose your card out of all the options out there typically means that you're going to have to win the race to the bottom in terms of pricing. So it is a natural progression in the mindset of the market to go after these numbered cards. What I don't think is as natural is to try to only get them in gem mint 10 form, because when the raw versions are outselling the mint copies, that is a problem. I've never heard of any other area where something being in mint condition is a bad thing, but in the hobby, it's regained the stigma. And prior to the boom, prior to the pandemic, the stigma around mint 9s was a very real thing on modern / ultra modern cards. And we're kind of starting to return to that now. I think that there's this, I would call it a myth going around, that a card that's not in gem mint form is pretty much worthless because there's so many of them out there. I don't necessarily think that's true. Again, it's a supply and demand type of thing. I will say that the larger the supply is out there, the odds become increasingly stacked against those lower grades to be able to maintain any sort of value. You look at, for example, someone like Luka, just lost in the Western Conference Finals in the NBA. Had a fantastic season, but over the course of since kind of the peak last spring, his base and silver Prism rookies have dropped in price, both the 10s and the 9s, and then anything below that as well. But the problem with those is that the 9s and below, as you go more and more down the grading scale, but particularly starting with the 9s, is that there's just not as much demand for them, because the demand for the PSA 10, while it is still fairly high, and it remains fairly high, which is because the price is still, pretty high for what it is and how many of them are out there, there is still enough supply out there to meet the demand for the PSA 10s. And there's enough supply as well where there becomes a little bit excess as well, which is why the PSA 10s have started to drop, which means the 9s, they don't become as coveted, because again, if there's that many PSA 10s out there, in order to get yours to sell, likely you're going to have to compete in that race to the bottom and have the best price available. Otherwise, the difference between a 9 and a 10 on that card isn't significant, whereas, say, on a vintage card, the difference between a 5 and a 6 can be extraordinary, depending on why it was a 5 or why it was a 6. But talking more so ultra modern, the differences between these 9s and 10s are microscopic. Hence why you kind of have to bring out the microscope to really see the issues with some of these cards that I'm showing up here right now. So the point here is that this Schrodinger's cat equivalent of cards possibly being a 10, and they have the right to be a 10 unless proven otherwise, I think is a good way to put it. Where if it's a raw card, maybe we can attribute it to PSA not opening up value submissions for over a year at this point. Maybe we can attribute it to the person who is buying it just not having the money to grade the cards at the current rates, or they don't think it's going to be worth it at the current rate. Then maybe there's more raw gem mint cards out there than there ever has been before. And yeah, that's probably fair that there are more raw gem mint cards out there than what we're used to seeing, because the price point and barrier for entry is also much higher than what we're normally used to. But the problem really starts to become is that when people are buying these raw cards, expecting that they're going to have these gem mint copies, realistically, you're going to have more cards that look like this and look like this when you're buying raw. And the nice thing about these 8s is that I know that there's no indents on there that the seller missed. I know that there's no wrinkles that the seller missed. Could the third-party grader have missed it? Yeah, possibly. These are the professionals, though. Whether you want to disagree with that or not, these are people who grade cards for a living. They have a lot of experience with these sets, where they continue to gain these experience grading these specific cards. So I do value their opinion. And based on the hobby and the prices they're paying, regardless of how much you want to trash talk whatever third-party grading service, people are still paying these prices. So clearly their opinion has some weight and some value in the hobby. But this idea that you can buy any card that is ultra modern, or even modern to some extent, that is pack fresh or has been kept in great shape, and that means it will gem, is a very dangerous perception, because more often than not, you will get burned. If you open up a box of a product right now that has 100 cards in it, you would be extremely lucky if you graded every single card to pull 25 out of 100 10s. It's just the way it is. You never know when you're going to get that stray fingernail indent or that scratch line that comes straight from the manufacturer. Those really unlucky examples. But also, you never know when the mass printing of some of these cards is going to result in a batch that just wasn't cropped very well and yours is tremendously off-centered. Or there's a corner that caught the edge of the pack on the way out, peeled it back a little bit, and now you're down to a 9. It's just a very dangerous precedent to assume that any raw card is going to be gem mint straight out of the pack. And there are some of you out there who stuck with me through this entire video, and a lot of you are probably the ones who have listened to me say this exact same thing in the past, and you go, well, Triple Crown, this is no different from what you've said before. You're kind of repeating your past points. And believe me, it feels like Groundhog Day making this video again. It really does. I sound like a broken record saying this, and I'm not the only one who continuously repeats this. But I'm noticing it, and it's becoming more and more of a trend, and which is a funny word for me to use because that's actually the point of discussion for Thursday's podcast episode. I'm going to be going over trends and fads in the hobby, so I'm excited to get into that. But with these cards right here, I can tell you right now that a lot of my experience lately buying raw cards, you're not going to get one that looks as nice as this or this. And these are 8s. So when you're buying raw, is it possible to get a 10? Absolutely. But the pricing right now is almost reflecting that people are banking on it. And is everyone buying these cards? Am I assuming that they're going to grade them? No, they don't all have to be graded, nor am I assuming that every single one is going to be graded. But with how heavy we are into this grading phenomena and how the grading craze is still continuing despite PSA being $50 a card. If you don't believe me, go look at some of the completed sales for certain PSA cards that have been graded since the return of the $50 submissions. I come across a handful daily that based on a certain number, I can tell about how much the person paid to have them graded at the minimum. And they're not bringing the cost that it would be to get it there, get it back, and to actually pay the grading fee on it. Not to mention what the eBay fees or your platform fees are once that is taken out. I come across them, and I'm coming across them more and more frequently as well. Typically, it is on the non-10 stuff. Now, the 10s seem to be, I haven't seen much change in the market for the 10s, aside from the base stuff that is more so readily available. But on the lower pop cards, the numbered cards, there is a command, or it is commanding a premium on those types of cards, which it makes sense. That's what a lot of people in the hobby are asking for right now, and the demand is probably not going to be able to keep up with the supply, or I should reverse that. The supply is not going to be able to keep up with the demand because there is a limited quantity. There's only 75 of these. There's only 100 of these. There's only 150 of these. And that's how many are total available. How many of these are still in the pack? How many of these are raw in someone's collection? How many of these are graded in someone's collection and they're not coming out unless something major happens? We don't really know how many exactly are available, if you will, whether that be actually listed for sale or the person who owns it would be willing to part with it, and if they're realistically available, right? These can be listed for sale, but being up for sale and being up for sale where they are astronomical asking prices are two different things. So what is the key takeaway from this right here? Well, if you're buying cards right now, there is a lot of opportunity in buying cards in this grade right here. And I get it. It's not as sexy as buying PSA 10s. It may not be as hopeful or as optimistic as buying raw cards, thinking that you may have a little diamond in the rough to maybe gem, and then maybe you can move it and buy the card in a lower grade or just move it to flip because that's your thing. Yeah, that's all great. But right now the opportunity is right here. And if you're looking to build your collection right now, I'm seeing a lot of great values on these types of cards. And if you can use this number to your advantage for whatever your motivation may be in the hobby right now, I say go ahead and do it, because I mean, I still own these cards right now. And you cover up this, you cover up this, cover up this, cover up this. I still have the card. That's what's really important to me. And at the end of the day, those who are your purist, if you will, or those who are the collectors, that is one of, if not the most important thing to them, is that they own the card regardless of condition. Would they like it to be quote unquote gem mint? Of course. Who doesn't want to have the nicest possible example of their card? But sometimes that's not always realistic, and sometimes that's not always available to us. So that was my 30-minute rant on kind of what I'm noticing right now with rated cards and the whole you cry, I buy type of thing. I will continue to pick up cards like this and sell a little mini collection. I will have them available, but how available they will be, I guess time will tell, because my asking price is not going to reflect what I paid for them. It is going to reflect raw card values, because this is the condition I would expect if I'm buying raw. So that's just how I'm approaching it right now. Take that for what it may mean. But thank you so much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Take care, stay safe, be kind.